Welcome to the Northwoods Kindred podcast. I'm Skogul, Gydia of the Northwoods.
And I'm Bodvarr, chieftain and Gothi. Today we're going to talk about getting started in Asatru, or Norse paganism, or Norse heathenry, or anything you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a point where we all begin. My point was in late 1993, just before Svineborn died, which was like I think it was on Christmas Eve, 1993.
Yeah, I think
when
you're
Svineborn
right.
died.
Yeah.
So just about the time Svineborn Blentinson died, when the Icelandic Asatru Fegalith was under new management, was just about the time where we were finding it, and I had no idea about any of it. None of it. I didn't know what any of that stuff was. So kind of a bummer, because it would have been nice to be in that moment in history, in the Asatru faith, and understand that you were in that moment in history.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of us, maybe we come to a moment, we're passing through your dog.
Come on, go lay down. Go lay down.
What a dummy. So I think it's sometimes we're passing through a moment in history, but we don't really understand the cultural relevance or significance of it until many years down the road. Here we are 31 years later, right? Mm-hmm. And you were right there with me.
Yeah, I never thought we'd be here 31 years later. Not in the beginning.
Yeah, because we've been through a couple of religions in our life, and this is where we settled way early.
Well,
right?
I wouldn't say settled, but this is what we chose.
Yeah, this is where we ended up. But it took work to get here, right? It took going through some stuff. Like I was into the Necronomicon,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, just some weird shit.
Yeah.
Dabbled with Satanism a little bit, like a lot of people did. And then I went to boot camp, and I was like, I'm a born again Catholic. I'm going to church because there's no way I'm standing around the barracks on Sunday afternoon and be the only fool there, right? Like I'm going to church because everybody's out of here. I'm not going to hang out with the drill instructors. So all of a sudden, I found new life into my Catholic.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
So anyway, that happened. So I think combined, because we had fairly different paths between even our interactions with people at live gatherings was different, because you always had a baby on your hip.
Oh,
you were always
for
cooking
sure.
food, and you had other things. So I think that combined, we have two separate views, but we've got 60 plus years combined on the path, right? Because we both have our own experiences.
Right.
Yeah, so it's 60 plus years, and we're giving it to you for free. So let's get started on getting started in Asatru, right?
Yes.
That's cool. Yeah. I didn't really think about it. Like, we got a lot of time. If you want to toss old Gothi Haken in here, let's have another 40 years on the path, 40 plus years. All right.
In days of yore, youth was born, the sturdy strength of the stock of gods. At the edge of the earth, Eden mates nine give birth and suckle to the brightest of the gods.
This bloat has ended. Thank you all.
Group hug!
So let's get started with, first off, this path is something that you either commit to or you don't. And a lot of people kind of cycle through it, and we see it. There's a sort of a pop culture moment. So, Of course, we've seen a big swell on the Norse pagan community with American gods, with Vikings Valhalla, the Ragnarok video games.
Yeah.
Is it Ragnarok? Is that the name of them? I don't play video games, so I don't know.
That's one of them, I think.
Okay, Thor Ragnarok or something?
Yeah.
Huge debates over how realistic this cartoon Thor was, right?
Yeah. Fat Thor.
Fat Thor. Huge debates over that. As if he was a living, breathing, flesh and blood creature.
Yeah.
There was
That Kingdom show.
Last Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a good show though.
Mhm.
But
Well, a lot of them were good shows.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
just
then you
not
had the-
good face.
Yeah, the Northman movie.
Yep.
We had what was the other? Oh, there was Ragnarok, that Norwegian series. Ragnarok, that like a little
I haven't
television
seen that
series.
one
You
yet.
didn't see it?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one or the American Gods. I haven't seen that one yet.
I haven't seen American Gods, but I've seen Ragnarok. I liked it. It was really
Yeah.
well
I mean,
done.
all the Marvel,
Oh,
the
Marvel
franchise,
stuff,
you
yeah,
know.
the Marvel franchise. Yeah, so there's a lot of misinformation too, but what it did was it got people excited
Hmm.
about Norse history, culture. All of a sudden you have ancestry DNA and everybody's got Viking blood,
Yes.
right? Why? Because they're Vikings, man, because they banged everybody everywhere in the world. So you white supremacist ideologies are out the window because everybody got Viking blood, because Vikings spread that shit thin. You know what I'm saying? Like, so your argument is gone right there. So there's a lot of people coming into the religion, and some stay and some don't. You know, we saw probably, especially with, you know, being in the military, anything that's a warrior culture gets some play. And I remember earlier on, being like, it was all about Vikings for me. You know, I mean, my call sign for as long as I've been in the Marine Corps has been Norseman.
Hmm.
Because I knew as much or more than anybody in any of my units about Viking culture and Norse history, and you know.
Yeah, and I mean, so much so that, you know, when you had Survival Hardware shop, like, you were known as Norseman. That's how people ordered knives from you.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's like Northwoods knives, and there's Norseman knives, and there's other companies that, and people are like, oh, it's a Norseman knife. Oh, but no, I'm not that guy. This is a Survival Hardware knife. So,
It got really confusing.
it got really confusing. But my point is that there's phases where, for a while, everybody was getting Spartan tattoos and Mola Leb, and you know,
Right, yeah.
because 300 came
Yeah.
out, right?
Yes.
And what else was there? Oh, there was the other one with Troy. When Troy came out, everybody was a
Yes.
Spartan warrior, or not a Spartan, but a
Gladiator.
yeah. Oh, Gladiator was another one. Yeah.
That movie.
So whenever this pop culture stuff pops up, it brings a big influx, and then some people are here for the party and the trend, and some people stay. And I think that we're probably in one of those phases right now where most of the people that came in for the party are on their way back out, right?
I think so, yeah.
We're seeing it calm down a little bit. There's less people getting in arguments referencing this historical accuracy of the Viking series, right?
Right.
We're seeing that a lot less now. So
Mhm.
so that just means that those people are finally starting to drift away. They lost interest. They were never really in it.
Or they read a book.
Most likely they just drifted on to the next. What is the next event?
I don't know. I want to say
Oh, it's all aliens now. It's aliens now. So everybody's drifting away from the Norse culture and diving into the new potential eventual alien invasion.
so they're all going to have like alien DNA?
No, but they might get alien tattoos, and they might start.
See, I would say probably more Egyptian, because we haven't had a very an Egyptian run for a long time, because for a while there it was,
Yeah, 'cause the
the
only
Mummy
movies that-
series and
Yeah, the Egyptology's always been a little either Indiana Jones-esque
Mhm.
or like straight up Nickelodeon, right? Like it was like really cheesy.
Yeah, and they got some
Yeah.
cool looking gods too, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Some guys you don't want to mess with, right? But aside from that, so the point is that there's some people are going to come and go always,
Yeah.
and it's really not worth it to get into real bad knockdown dragouts and pissing matches with them. You know, the gods know we've been in a few, some warranted, some not,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But we all learn from our mistakes. So anytime that you get into an argument with someone on the internet, especially over religion, and it gets heated, it's a mistake, and you have entered into a trap. So I'm learning that one. I've been in it a few times, and I'm learning that that's a trap. And anytime that you get emotional about something that somebody else said on the internet, even if it was directed right at you, it's a trap. It's a trap. So let's talk about getting connected to the gods. So most people get to this path, and something happens. It's almost always some event that tells them that they're in the right place. It's not because they saw a movie and got excited. It's because something happened. And I hear on the daily, Odin called me to this path. Freya found me. Loki found me. You know, Thor heralded me from my homelessness and brought me into being this or that.
Hell has worked for me. Or
yeah, hell has worked for me. I've heard that one. It's like, whoa. Who you harvesting, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, there's always seems to be this this unreasonable connection to the divine that brought them here. And I'm not saying that it's not there. I'm just saying that it's very unlikely that, well, that a god who has their own religion to deal with, right? So think about it right now. Like, there's probably as many Norse, whatever name you call it, whether you're a Rockatru, a Lokatru, an Asatru, a Norse pagan, a Norse heathen, Thursatru, whatever you want to say. There's probably as many practitioners of those folkways in America, both on the left and the right, than there are in the rest of the world. Like, we could be that down. There is probably more practitioners of some sort of a Nordic folkway in America than there are in all of Scandinavia and most likely the rest of the world. Because we're free to do that. Mm-hmm. Because we're free to do it and fully express it without any kind of... I think most Norwegians are... I think Lutheran, is that the national religion?
I think so. Yeah.
I will say that... I'm not saying that they don't have any cultural value here. Of course they do. The simple things that they do at family reunions and gatherings have been passed down for millennia through family lines. Those things are so culturally significant to us, and we can't dismiss it just because they're not of our folkway. And I've spent time in Norway, and I've talked with Norwegian military quite a bit, and they know, many of them, just your run-of-the-mill Norwegian knows less about their Viking culture than what some of the people let on. But there's also a lot of people there that are super, super knowledgeable about it. So it's just like here in America. There are some people that know shit all about American history, and there's some people that live and breathe it. It's the same with the Viking history in Scandinavia. Just because they're from Norway doesn't mean they know their history. Just because they're from Germany or Russia or anywhere that would have had these tribes, just because they're from there doesn't mean they know their history. And some of them don't know that they don't know. Some of them just talk out their ass, right? And they get the credit for knowing because of where they are. And sometimes that can lend a bad, it can put a bad tooth in the mouth of Asatru, right? It can be that one little nugget of mistruth because it was misunderstood by somebody from the native land, and it was just taken as fact without ever being checked. Mm-hmm. That does happen, and I'm sorry, and I'm not dissing on anybody because I love my Norwegian brothers and sisters, and you know I got a lot of friends in the other Scandinavian countries too, and we can talk about these sort of things, but there are people in every country that doesn't necessarily know the history of their place, right?
Right.
I mean, I think we can all probably agree to that. So take things at, you know, I wouldn't call people out on their stuff. I have, and it never works out. But take everything with the idea that if it's sensational and you want to believe it, then just verify it. Trust but verify is something we always said in the Marine Corps. Trust but verify. I trust your opinion and I trust your knowledge, but don't hold it against me, but I'm just going to go check. Right? I'm just going to go check real quick. I'm going to look it up. Yeah. That's okay. You can do that. You can trust but verify. And I think that's the best advice for navigating through this path is trust but verify. Don't, just because you think you know and they have an opposing opinion, you might be wrong.
Did you know that Northwoods Kindred has a Discord channel dedicated to frith and sharing of knowledge related to the Norse pagan path? We have channels dedicated to all disciplines on this path and some of the most kind and generous heathens the world over. Are you curious how to pronounce something in Icelandic or Norse? Jump on over to the mother tongue and ask a native speaker. Still not getting it? Hop into the Well of Words with voice and video channel to speak face to face. Trying to work out the meaning of a difficult dream? Hop over to Dreams and Visions and get somebody else's opinion. Are you proud of something that you accomplished? Share it with the whole tribe on Braggy's Round. Experience community like only the Northwoods Kindred can bring. And of course, it is free and always will be. The link is in the link tree. Welcome to the Northwoods Kindred's online tribe.
Take their information and go verify it. you know. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. You can go back to them, but I would never go back to anybody I would never. We were talking earlier about this kind of working up for the podcast, and one of the things that I said was that the worst way to ever have a conversation about a religion is to tell somebody they're wrong. Right? So the thing that you believe or the thing that you thought you knew is wrong, that immediately there's a wall between you, and now it becomes a pissing match.
Yes.
But you can ask questions. The best way to convince somebody they're wrong is to have them convince themselves. Why do you believe that? Where did you hear that? That's cool. I heard this, and I got it from this source. Where did your thing come from? If you can do that without being confrontational or without calling them out on it, then, you know, in a lot of cases it might just be, I don't know, like somebody told me that and I just kind of internalized it, and I never really thought to look it up, right?
Well, didn't you have one of those moments just the other week or the other month where it was like, I don't know why I never...
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember it specifically. But it happens kind of often that because since we came on Asatru, I guess you should probably know something about the beginning of Asatru for us, right, in the early 90s, because it was 93.
Mm-hmm.
At the very beginning,
93.
It was 93, but we didn't really know much of anything at all until about 95 or 96, and we were had a couple of books and we'd done a little reading, right? So it took a couple of years actually to get some momentum. We didn't know. Like, the only thing that was out was like the 13th Warrior, right?
Right.
And it took like 2 years to even figure out that was just a shitty version of Beowulf. You know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it wasn't until 2000 that we met Gallahorn.
Right, yeah. So 93 to 2000, so we had a long time. I think Gallahorn was kind of impressed with the knowledge that we did have, because what they had just gone through is a big cleaning house, and they canned a whole bunch of like Wicketrews. I think at first Gallahorn's goal was growth, and they grew, but they let in the wrong people, and it ended up causing issues.
Yeah. We
missed that whole house cleaning. When we came into it, they had just cleaned house, and there was very few of them left, and they were like, we're not done. We're done. We're just going to be the rest of us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a solo thing then.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was just supposed to be a couple of them, and they were just going to do their thing together and avoid
and then
public
here you come, kicking in the door.
Just like I do. And I had met Hawk, and I was actually on a deployment, and I sent him an email, and we started conversing on email, and then he invited me to go to his place. And that all happened right at the 9/11 time frame, right?
Yes, that happened right around 9/11, and
like the 9/11 2000.
And
like
I think you
event.
Started conversing with him like shortly after you went on deployment. So I think he had like almost 6 months of convincing his wife that I know we just cleaned house out of all these
weirdos and wackadoos.
Yeah. But I'm interested in this guy.
Yeah, because he invited me out to his place. So we won't get into it, but I had flown home from deployment a little bit early because I had to grab her and we had to go to my father's funeral. Right?
Right, 9/11.
Because he died 9/10, right before the actual 9/11. So whatever, we'll get into that later if we didn't already. So that was kind of our first foray into public Asatru, was meeting Gallahorn. And it started with us with a lot of like, to me, it was reminiscent, cause maybe I'm sensationalizing it or romanticizing it, but to me, it was reminiscent of any one of Odin's trials, those moments where it's like, I ask you a question, you ask me a question. I ask you a question, those battles of wisdom and lore.
Okay.
Right? So it was like, with Hawken and I, it was emails back and forth about this or that. And it was not only just lore, but it was a lot about the community, the interactions that we had had. I would write him a poem, and he would send me a gift, and I would send him another gift back. And it was all about feeling each other out to see, does this person have the same idea about Asatru as I have, right? Does this person understand reciprocity? Does this person understand the lore? You know, have they read anything, you know? And I remember that my book collection was kind of weak at that time. And Hawken had sent me a copy of Hollander's Edda, which I still have.
I know you
it's
do.
all taped up. The pages are falling out. There's not a page in there that doesn't have some writing on it or something.
You got your notes all over the place.
Yeah. So to this day, I've got a soft spot in my heart for Hollander's Edda. I don't necessarily think it's the best one that was ever written, but it has a special place to me because it was the first bond between Gothi Haken and myself. It was the beginning of a very long friendship that has never seen a dark day.
Yeah.
Our friendship has never been soured. There's never been a fight or an argument or anything between us. So, which is very rare, I think, especially in this community.
I think so, yeah.
Tides turn very quickly in this community.
But it's also that way, too, with our sister Frithie.
Mm-hmm.
We've never had a dark day with her, and our
No, we
sister
haven't.
Gondol and our brother Eldof and Thorin. Like, those just don't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good example of what a kindred can be.
And you know, we've brought that over into Northwoods. Like, yes, we've had some you know, growth spurts with other members, and sometimes you know, they got planted elsewhere. And we both just kind of kept our own garden, but you know, we've never had dark days with all those that are still
Not
here.
the ones that are left.
Yeah.
Which are most of the OG.
Yeah.
Really, truthfully. So that's actually probably a good sort of a metaphor, because what we were talking about is building that relationship with the gods.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you can't have a relationship with your fellow kinsmen, like a real good, honest relationship with your kinsmen, you're probably not going to be able to build a relationship with the gods, because they're a little more demanding, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not. In some cases they are. Maybe you can ignore them, and it's not like they come down on you if you ignore them. But if you really want to build a relationship with someone, that's a relationship is give and take. You have to recognize the gifts that you get, and you have to give gifts in return, right? That's a relationship.
Right.
You can't just take, and be like, Odin gave me this, and Odin wants me to do that, and Odin said this, and Odin said that. And then you take anything you do and say, well, that was my contribution to the gods. Oh, I spilled my Red Bull. Oh, that was for Odin. You can't, you can't just phone it in like that. So it requires, and I think a kindred's a good model for that, because as you're learning to build a relationship with all these different personalities with different experiences, you can also start to learn how to build a relationship with your own gods. Mm-hmm. Right? Reciprocity is really the key.
Yeah. And, you know, I want to make the comment here that, you know, starting relationships with your kinsmen, like, you need to go all in. Like, there has to be trust right up front. And you can't hold them accountable for somebody else that lost your trust. Mm. You know, you can't read, you know, the same book with a different cover and be like, I know that you're going to fuck me down the road, and I'm just going to only trust you 90%. Because if you only trust them 90%, it's just never going to go anywhere. Yeah.
And we've definitely been, you know, X'd over by some kinsmen.
But you also can't, like, just meet someone and be like, hey, here's the keys to my house, and I trust you 100%. Mm-hmm. So some of that trust does have to be earned, but you shouldn't look at them as distrustful.
Right. And that's
untrustworthy.
That's kind of the same metaphor that I'm talking about, like when you're going in with the gods. You can't just be like, oh, a raven, Odin is calling me to my folk. Odin, 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 Odin. And then all of a sudden, Odin is your Jesus. Right?
Yeah.
So Odin is not your Jesus.
And then Hominus Dominus.
Yeah, neither is Freya, neither is Frigga, neither is Loki. That's not your Jesus.
Yeah.
This is a pantheon. There's a whole, it's more like you're building a relationship with a kindred, and you want to be a part of that kindred. You want to be accepted by that kindred. You have to put in the work. And the work is done in the form of, in our case, what we believe is it's done in the form of rituals. Mm-hmm. It's done in the form of outreach, like this, letting other people know what we believe and how we practice. Doesn't say you have to do that, but for us, this is part of our sacrifice. We don't get paid for this, you know? Mm-hmm. If we do, it's very little, you know, $100 a month or something, but considering the amount of content we create, that ain't shit. So, but I'm not complaining about that. This is part of our journey, you know, and it helps us too. Just sitting here and talking about it helps us discover our path, discover our own faults, because we talk a lot about the things that we've done wrong. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it might come across sounding like complaining, but really what we're doing is we're working out our issues so that we can do better going forward, because we know that we're flawed creatures. But the point of that is that in order to build a relationship with the group of the gods, is you can't hold them to an impossible standard, right? Like a lot of people are like, well, I'm Vanatru because the Aesir started the war and they did this shit and they did that other shit. And it's like, bro, these are just stories. Like, they all represent important dominant forces of nature. You can't have summer without winter. You can't. You can venerate summer, but you still got to live through winter. You might as well figure out how to enjoy winter. Take up skiing and hunting and the things that happen in the winter. You know, have winter celebrations. You can't just have summer. You can't just have Vanner. You have to have all of it, right?
Right.
And I think that as you learn to value the hard times, then you give all the gods the respect that they deserve, right? Because we don't know what's happened. So some of the worst shit that's happened in our lives has turned out to be the best. For instance, I was stationed at the Mountain Warfare Training Center.
Yes.
And I loved my job. I had intended to retire up there, start working for range control, go right out of one career and right into the other. And it all got turned upside down on my second year. And they're like, oh, you got orders to Mississippi. Well, what do you mean I'm going to Mississippi? I'm supposed to retire here. They're like, nope, you're going to Mississippi, and you're due next month. What? I got this huge house in the Californias. Whatever, man. Turn it over to the bank. Run to Mississippi, because what active duty moron can afford mortgage on a house that he's not living in and rent in a place where he is living? You know what I mean? So it's just not possible. So I lost my house. I lost a lot of respect because we had to just bail. I had to pretty much put sergeants in charge of my corps. Like, I had to leave, right?
Yeah, I mean, you were like up at the top tier and
I was running.
Charge,
I was running 2 schools, and I was like, "There's nobody here to take over my
schools." Like, bye, Felicia.
Yeah, and they're like, "Well, that's not a problem. Train somebody." I was like, "I got a month, man. I got to pack my shit." So anyway, it was a bad situation, and I was mad. I was mad at the Corps. I was mad at the gods. I was cussing at Odin. Yes, you can do that. He won't kill you. You can be mad. You're basically just a child having a tantrum. Like, your parents don't kick you; they just wait till you to get over it, right? And then they're like, "Okay, did you learn your lesson?"
Maybe they wipe your tears off and
okay, let's go get ice cream, buddy. You know. So
you do like ice cream.
I do like ice cream. So we ended up in Mississippi, and because of that whole ordeal and that thing that for us was just completely flipping our life upside down and shaking it out on the floor, and it ended up being the best thing because we ended up here. After I retired right straight into this house, and we have not moved, and it's been 11 years now, right?
Yeah, which is the longest you've ever been in a...
Longest I've ever lived in a house in my entire life. And we have, a beautiful property, we have a beautiful vey, we built this amazing Kindred, we have this thing going on the internet, we have all of this, and it's all because of that moment when everything was as bad as I thought it could possibly be. Right?
It was such
Not
a
to
bad
mention
moment.
I lost 2 of my best friends in the world right at that moment.
Yep.
One died in Afghanistan, one died of a heart attack in America, and I couldn't even get to both funerals. Like, it was a bad, bad time. And I don't know what value that had on us, but I got to one funeral and it was up here, and that's why we're here. Right?
Right. I mean, because we talked about moving, when we were in Mississippi, we talked about, well, maybe the Missouri area or Arizona.
The Carolinas.
Idaho wasn't even on our radar.
Nope, until I came up here and I was like, I'm going to die in that place. That's where I want to go when I get out. And you're like, whatever, let's go.
Let's do it. Are there mountains?
Yeah. So that's where we're at, and that's why. And so sometimes those bad things that happen, we look at them as a bad thing instead of understanding that they are just part of the process. They are a winter, right? They are a winter. And nobody wants to venerate the pain, certainly, but we have to buckle down and get through it. And that's what shows glory to our gods. That's what says that we understand what you're up to. We understand that there's hardships, and that's what makes the good times better.
Yeah.
So,
and there's, after the winter, there's always growth.
And that's how you build kinship with the gods, is by understanding those things and not raising your fist and yelling at Odin. I've done it. I continue to do it, and I'll probably do it again. But eventually I'll come to my senses, and I'll realize that whatever this trauma was, it was for the best, and it led to better things,
Yeah.
Even if you go all the way back to the traumas that we may or may not have had in the church, had we not had them, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. Right?
100%,
That's probably a fair statement, right?
Yeah, I mean, a portion of my family was very religious. So, it would have been easy to go there.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been easy to just fall into that trap and become religious, or just be just another Christian who does nothing but maybe potentially wears a cross or gets a big cross tattoo and says something about Jesus once in a while when it's relevant, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of those Christians out there too. But we didn't end up there. So what we would interpret as a bad thing just led to a different thing than the trajectory we were on at the moment. It's just a course correction. Sometimes course corrections are painful.
Did you know that the Northwoods Kindred isn't just a podcast? We are a living, breathing kindred with all kinds of helpful stuff all over the web. Now, we've made it super easy and convenient for you to stalk us by putting everything that we have into one easy-to-find location. In the description below, we added our link tree, and that'll take you to everything that we have all over the net. I hope that helps. Por vigi, my friend.
Yeah, and, so... looking back at all that, I mean, that's how kind of Northwoods came to be, is, we were solo practitioners, and then we found Gjallarhorn, and then we got transferred somewhere else, and we didn't have all of that connection, physical connection, and being able to go do gatherings and stuff, and so we had to decide, hey, man, we missed this, and...
Yeah.
We need this in our life, and how do we get this? And
what you don't know really is that most of the model of Northwoods is built on the model of Gjallarhorn. But I think we take everything a little bit farther than Gjallarhorn ever took it.
I think so.
We just took it a little bit farther. So,
but there's also two of us in this faith, and Gjallarhorn, had one in the faith, and then one in another faith. So it was a mixed faith household.
Which we have a couple of mixed faith households in this kindred, but not as the kindred leadership.
Yes.
So.
And then there's also, there's so much more land here. And our kinsmen, they can take whole weekends off and just come here.
Yeah.
That wasn't an option really back then.
No, it really wasn't. So anyway, we got a little off the topic, but we were talking about connecting to the gods. And so you have to treat that relationship as a relationship like think of you're on the outside and you're trying to connect with a kindred, or you're trying to connect with another group, and you really want to be a part of that group. How do you do that? You do that by listening and trying to be useful and trying to be valuable to that group, and hoping that one day they'll take you under their wing. You can't just walk in and kick in the door and be like, "I'm here, bitches! Let's get this party started." They're going to be like, "No, you're not our type, man."
Well, I think not even if you're just doing this as, looking for a kindred, if you're just looking for...
No, I'm not talking about a kindred. I'm talking about a connection to the gods.
Okay.
I'm just relating it to the idea of getting to know a kindred because they are a kindred.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Because I was going to say, some of our tribesmen in our community have found connection with other people in their local area. And while they're not... this big giant kindred, it's like this one person they have a connection with, and they get together and they have coffee or they have ritual, and
well, they found value in each other.
They did, yeah.
And that's the thing, is you have to, you obviously, we can look up and we can know that the gods have value. Look at everything that's here, like they created it, right? So there's value in there. How do we show them that we're valuable to them, right? You don't do it by saying, "Hey, Aesir, love you guys, but those Vanna people got to go." You know what I mean? Or, "Hey, I love the Vanna, but them Aesir's, man, they can rock it." You can't do that. Those are their friends. That's their kindred. Yeah. Right? Even if you're like, "Hey, I'm Rockatru. I don't even like Odin." Well, guess what? The other ones do. All the gods that you like still like Odin. You can't be dissing their brother and their friend,
And they're all father.
Yeah. You gotta play the game. And who knows, you may like them when you get to know them a little bit. I've certainly had some wars with some people on TikTok that we've turned out to be pretty good friends in the end,
Yeah, you guys just had to do the whole chest bump.
We had to shake it out, right? Cocks of the walk, right? So the next thing we'll slip into, I want to get as much of this list done as possible.
Okay.
We talked for quite a bit.
Yeah, you have the list tonight.
We talked
I have
quite a bit.
nothing on my list.
To get a patron god or not is one of the questions that people want to know about. Now, I'll tell you that I have a patron god and a patron goddess, or patroness, as you call it. But it wasn't, I didn't have them out of the gate. Well, for me, it took me a long time to learn about as many gods and goddesses as possible. And then at some point in my Asatru career, one of them made themselves known and said, hey, I'm looking after you right now. And I give them special attention because of it. But they're not my Jesus.
Right.
Right? They're not my Jesus.
Not my Jesus.
So my patron is Tyr.
They're like my kinsmen.
Yeah. So even less. I would say it's almost like my mentor.
Oh, that's
I look
good,
at my
yeah,
I look at my
really
patrons not as my sole god, but as my mentor. And as my mentor, I have less interaction with them usually than most of the others.
Mm-hmm.
So Tyr is my patron. He's been my patron for quite a long time as a military active duty sniper. A lot of those things they just kind of line up and they make sense, and it seems real shallow. And it's like, okay, he was military, so he's chooses Tyr. Well, a lot of guys in the military choose Odin or Thor or Uller, right? They choose differently, and I say choose because it is your choice. It is not the choice of the gods. The gods do not choose us; we choose them. I firmly believe that. Like, you can believe whatever you want to believe. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but in my practice and in my head and in my belief system, we choose the God that we want to align ourselves with. Because if we look up and we say, "This is the God that most exhibits the traits that I hold value in," right? If it's Odin, yeah, maybe you hold value in his womanizing. Maybe that's your thing, right? Maybe you hold value in his magic abilities. Maybe you hold value in the fact that he's a complete endless wanderer. Maybe you hold value in his quest for unquenchable thirst for knowledge, right? Maybe some of those things are things that you value higher than anything else. In which case, you would look to him as a mentor that would teach you how to pursue those goals, right?
Right.
So in my case, Tyr was my mentor, my example. What would Tyr do would be a good bumper sticker.
Right. Right.
The idea was
Don't take that.
What's that? Yeah, don't take that. No, you can take it. You can have it.
Yeah.
So what would Tyr do? That's kind of like the thing. Like, if it gets hard, if I'm cold on a boat raid and we're hitting the beach at 2 a.m., and it's 40 degrees and we're freezing cold, and I'm like, I can't be a bitch, man. What would Tyr do? Like, what would he do if he was watching me right now? He'd be like, suck it the fuck up, devil dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was kind of like my whole thing, is like, I'm trying to live up to this example of the most perfect warrior who sacrificed his own hand to save his, the people that he was protecting.
To save his friends.
That's why I took Tyr as a mentor. But I've done less bloats to Tyr than I've ever done to Thor or Odin or Uller. They've all gotten more from me than Tyr. But Tyr is the example that I had to look up to, right? He was not my Jesus. Right. So that's it. Like, but you don't have to pick a patron. You're free to wander around the community and experience the giants that have been accepted into the God's land, the Aesir, the Vanir, elves and dwarves. Experience all of these creatures in their natural habitat. Read the stories that they're a part of, and determine whose values align with your
You
values.
asked for it, so we did it. Northwoods Kindred now has some amazing swag that we created just for our tribesmen. We have branded specialty shirts, tote bags, coffee cups. No more tired old Viking designs pillaged from the net. These are high quality products that you can only get by visiting our Teespring store. And most are available in a wide variety of sizes and color options. There's certainly something there to make every Norse heathen a happy camper. Link is in the link tree below.
So you don't have to choose a patron if you don't want to, or if you're not ready to. And I certainly wouldn't force it. It'll happen when it's necessary. And it's okay to change too. Like, at a certain moment, when your mentor has outgrown their mentorship, slide to a different one, right? Like, it's hard for me to let go because I spent so much of my life looking up to Tyr.
Mm-hmm.
But I really kind of want to lean more in the direction of Uller, where we're at now, you know?
Yeah, I mean...
To the point where we've even named this property Italy, after Uller's estate. I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I'm kind of in that same transitional period that you're in, too. Like, you know, my patroness has always been Frigga, and now I'm transitioning to Freya because I'm in a different point of my life. There's just this... I don't know, this whatever. We're going to go on from there.
You're going from the anchored down mother spirit to the free, loving, let's take some risks spirit.
Yeah, but I'm also like...
In your crone stage?
I'm trying to find my crone stage. So it's like, who, like, can I just have like 3?
You can have whatever you want, babe.
Like, can I just have 3 and just, you know, just line them up and be like, look ladies.
Yeah.
You know? Because, you know, I've been with Frigga for so long. And... you know, while I'm not turning my back on her going to Freya, it's still, it's kind of sad. It's this emotional, you know, journey that I've been on for almost 30 years with this woman, or this energy, so to speak, because, you know, not the whole human being kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you look to her as, you know, a mother and a grandmother and stuff like that. And now it's like, now I just want to, like, do cool shit and you know, maybe get in trouble and
take a risk and get a tattoo and go have some fun.
Yeah. So
I can totally agree with that. Yeah. So let's transition into signs from the gods.
Oh.
Because a lot of people say that they see a sign from this god or that god, and that tells them to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, I walked out back behind work the other day to throw some stuff in the trash, and there must have been 400 ravens, a full murder of ravens out there. Full on big ass birds, cawking and crowing and crawling around, and their tracks are all over my loading dock, and it was amazing.
What'd they tell you?
They didn't tell me anything. And I know that they were only there because I feed them. Right? They're only there because I spread bird feed around for them. I get ravens will come through one time. I'll see deer another time, and I'll see a bunch of turkeys another time. I didn't take that as a sign.
No.
But, and sometimes, I guess, so I've always said that when you get a sign from the gods, you're going to know what it means. Mm-hmm. You will know what it means. There's no doubt about it. And if you don't know what it means, then it's not a sign from the gods. It's just a cool event. Okay, and I'll give an example of both. A cool event is like, do you remember when Håkon was here and we brewed a mead and then we stepped outside and there was like 1 billion birds in a swirl above our house?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
That was insane.
It was
just so many birds just flying this tunnel above our house.
It was so eventful that Håkon called home and checked in with all of his people.
Yeah, checked in with all his people to be like, what's going on? Is everybody okay? Is anybody sick or in the hospital? And everybody's like, no, we're all good. We're all good.
And I remember he didn't even get a hold of his middle son.
Yeah.
And he just left a message like, hey, there's this thing going on, and I need you to call me back just so I know that you're okay.
Yep.
And he got a call back almost immediately, like, yeah, I'm great.
Yep.
What's going on?
Yep. And then I know that we drove away from the house and we could see it like a mile away. We could still see that flock of birds directly above our house. It was insane.
It was like a tornado. It was like Ravenado.
Right. And what did it end up meaning?
Nothing.
Nothing. Didn't mean shit. It was just cool. It was just really cool to see. It was a cool event. It's a cool story to share. But we've had other events that have absolutely meant something, and when they do, you know they do, right? Mm-hmm. So, which one should I tell about? So I've had a couple. Probably the Iraq one's the best one, huh?
Yeah, you've talked about that one before.
Have I on the podcast?
Yeah.
What other ones?
What other one are you talking about?
I have a couple, but like my very first bloat in the desert.
Yep, you've talked about that one too. You have great signs.
Okay, so I won't make you go back and try and find it, but I'll tell you about this particular one. which I interpreted to be Freya. So I am sitting on a rooftop in Nasiriyah, Iraq. If you don't know anything about Nasiriyah, watch Generation Kill. It was right there, same exact time frame.
It's a great series.
Exact time frame.
It's like an HBO series, right?
They rolled right through. We rolled right in after them. That was it. And I was in Nasiriyah, Iraq, and we had been there for about a week, and things were calming down a little bit. We'd go on patrols with no events, and everything was just pretty stale at that particular moment. So I'm sitting on this rooftop of the Minister of Agriculture building, I think. It's down the road from the Saddam Hospital where Private Jessica Lynch was rescued. And I'm sitting on top of the building with my feet just kind of dangling, just do, like whatever, just hanging my feet over 9 stories up, looking out over this, decimated but still pretty cool looking city, right? And then this freaking, I saw it as a giant white owl with a wingspan of about, I don't know how many feet, but it was
pterodactyl size.
Pterodactyl size owl, right? White, no sound. It just went straight up the wall. And I was laying, I'm sitting on the edge of it, and I fall over to the back. And I roll off to the side, and I'm like, what the hell? And my partner, Dylan, was like, what? And I was like, did you see that owl? He's like, man, I didn't see shit. You're crazy. And I'm like, my heart's going, boo, 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 boo. And I'm dying here, right? And I'm like, whatever. So I'm calming down a little bit. And then I finally get my shit together, and I roll back up into that spot. I sit down in that spot and hang my feet over the ledge again. No sooner did I sit my ass down, that owl came back, straight up, right in front of me, right up the wall. And I fall back again, and 2 shots hit the wall behind me. So I had been sitting in the scope. I won't say a sniper because a sniper's a profession. These people are just pot shots, right? Mm-hmm. But there was a shooter, and I was sitting right there in his line of sight because I was complacent and bored. And that owl... So if that was a communication from the gods, they could have stood on the side of that deck and said, hey, get the fuck down, dummy. They're pointing at you. And I wouldn't have got the message as fast as that owl. So my point with that is that when the gods try to communicate with you, you get the message. There's no room for misinterpretation. If there's something that's so important that they need to tell you, they're going to find a way to tell you in a way that you react precisely like they want you to, without any interpretation. And you don't need to interpret it. So if there's a really cool event and you're like, oh, I saw 2 ravens and one of them shit on my car, does that mean anything? No, it doesn't mean anything. It means a raven shit on your car. That's what it means. It means go wash your car. It's not a sign from the gods, because if it was a sign from the gods, if they gave you a communication, they are fluent in the language of communication, right? Mm-hmm. They're fluent in it. So you may not be, but they know how to communicate with you and get you to do exactly what they want. That's it. So if you think it was a sign from the god, you should already know what it means. You should have known what it means without any question, without any doubt. I know that owl told me to get down. Not a second thought in my head about it, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody else would interpret it any differently. So I've had a few of those events in my life that have told me that the gods are real, and they do communicate with us when necessary, but not that often. Like I said, I've been at it 31 years, and I got about 3 of them stories, right? Mm-hmm. So, but it also means that they're real, and they communicate with us. So communications from the gods are real. It is a real event. It does take place, but try not to attribute everything to a communication from the gods, because what? Sometimes
just a raven is just a raven.
Sometimes a raven is just a raven,
No, I'm contemplating whether to share my sign, which is a very kind of emotional sign, and it's also that sign where that this is your path. Mm. So, this was back in 1999. And this was one of the worst moments of our lives. And you know what moment I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And there was just this night. Okay, so we lost twins. And I had just recently lost the second twin. The first twin we had lost weeks prior and had no clue on. And there was just this one night that just, like, everything inside me broke. And I didn't know, I mean, this is when you were working nights.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't have anybody. I just had 2 children. The blood relatives that we did have, by this time it was like, you need to just kind of get over this and move on with your life. And I just had this night of complete brokenness. And I remember you telling me that the runes had magic. And all I had to do was, just grab them up and I could feel the magic. And so late in the night, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I grabbed those runes and I just held on for dear life. And just, I was sobbing for somebody to pull me out of this darkness that I was in. And just all of a sudden, this little bag of runes that you gave me just started having this tiny little heartbeat. And it just pulled me out of that place, and I just let out this sigh of relief, and I just fell into this beautiful sleep. And it was then that I knew, like, this is my path. This is where I'm going to be. This is something that I need to have in my life. And it was the next day. Back then in the 90s, there was CD clubs, if you remember CD clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And we had got caught into that scam. And you ordered a bunch of CDs weeks prior. And you went to the mailbox before you got home from work. And one of the CDs was the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. And you're like, oh, this is awesome. Let's listen to this CD. And the first song that came on was Knock on Wood.
Mm.
And I just spent this most horrible night that I've ever spent, and you had no idea what the fuck was going on. And you just blasted this music in our kitchen, and we just started jumping up and down. And it was just this moment of release and healing, and just this sign that this is where I need to be. Like, so it was my sign to be on the path, and it was also my sign, I guess not of any God, but just that there is this place that we can go, and there is life on the other side awaiting for us. We just have to kind of get through this one to get to those that we lost. So
yeah, we gotta learn what we have to learn in this school.
So yeah, I don't know if I really want you to. I'm such a fucking crybaby.
You're fine, love. You're fine.
I'm sorry.
So I think we can wrap that part up. There are signs from the gods. We get them, and when the gods communicate with us, there's no room for misinterpretation. Mm-mm. And you couldn't tell me that what I interpreted is anything different than what I interpreted, right? I don't care if those owls haunt that area, and that happens to every single person that goes there. In that moment, that was a sign for me, right?
Yeah.
And others too, but that's beside the point. And other really cool, crazy, majestic things have happened in our lives, and they just turned out to be really cool events that are noteworthy. Yeah. But not signs, right?
Right.
Because there was no communication.
Right.
Maybe it meant something, but whatever it meant was irrelevant to us. It could have been someone else's sign. Someone down the road could have seen that and interpreted it in a different way that made an impact on their life, right? That communication might not have been meant for us. We were just fortunate enough to be able to witness it, right?
Right.
My partner didn't witness the owl. That was something just meant for me. Nobody saw it. Anybody I talked to afterwards, nobody saw it. But I saw it twice, right? And it had an impact because it kept me from getting a bullet hole in the chest or two. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so there are definitely signs from the gods. Don't let anybody tell you that there's not.
Yeah.
But if you have to interpret it, or you have to go to some douchebag seer on TikTok and have them interpret this sign for you, they're full of shit, right? You don't have to interpret it. The gods meant that message for you, not for you to take to some douchebag on the internet and pay them money to interpret it for you, right?
Right.
They don't work like that. And I'll stand by it. Like, nothing I say is dogmatic, but I'll stand by that. So,
yeah. And I will say that looking back on, what I went through that night, like, that was the only way it could have played out, because that gave me absolute trust and dedication into, the gods.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that.
And yeah, if it wasn't for, that moment of just despair, then maybe I wouldn't be where I'm at now. And even though it took me a long time on my path to get where I am now, they were always front and center in my heart.
Right, yeah.
Maybe with 5 kids running around, I didn't get to read as many books as you did. But
well, it's easy when I'm deployed for 6 months and I'm sitting on a ship. I got a stack of books. Is all I can do is read.
Right.
I'm not feeding kids. And
I know, man. Could you imagine if you had Audible on a ship now?
Oh man, we'd have been broke. I'd have bought every book on Audible.
You would have been like, "Hey, babes,
yeah,
can I get one of your credits?"
Yeah. I don't need no care package. Just give me that credit. Right.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the solitary practice.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of these people, our Norse pagan friends, are probably coming into this solitary. We're going to have to wrap up soon, but I want to kind of get into a little bit about solitary practice and what, how that works, how that worked for us. Because we were solitary practitioners for a lot of time. All we had to lean on was each other.
Right.
And we didn't have the internet, and we didn't have chat groups, and we didn't have any Asatru friends. It was just you and me and what we thought was the right way to get through the world, right? And so at least we had each other.
Right.
I know not everybody has that, but hey, man, you gotta learn how to build a relationship, I guess. Because maybe some of you don't know that we've been friends since 5th grade or something. So we've known each other our whole lives. So we're kind of in a unique position that there's no experience that one has had that the other hasn't been a part of that we can at least remember.
Right.
I mean, we got some shit from before we got together that I can remember a couple of little things about living in Georgia when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And you can remember some shit about bumming around and going to flea markets with your grandparents.
Yeah, little pieces of life before you. But there's not many years of life before you.
Yeah, so we're lucky in that respect. But I would still say that it was a solitary practitioner phase for a lot of it, right? And so we got hooked on with Gallahorn, and Gallahorn gave us a lot of education that you could only get that way. But now you can get a lot of that education on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, right? I hope that we give a lot of that education.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really nice if we did. But so there's a lot of information that you couldn't get without meeting other heathens and getting inside the group, and knowing people, and which is why we know the movers and shakers of the day. I know Steve McNallen. I know Valgard Murray. I know these people because everybody met at certain places and we had conversations and disagreements and fights. We had these things. They happened in real life, not on the internet a long time ago. So now, as a solitary practitioner, you essentially have access to more information than we had even when we were a part of a large group or a national organization, right?
Right.
Which is a really big bonus, but it still gets lonely. And you have things like our Discord. Like, go join our Discord. Like, it is different than any other Discord, Norse pagan Discord out there. I will guarantee that. I won't say it's the best because I'm not a member of any other Discords, but I will guarantee that it's different. And I will guarantee that because everybody that comes in says, holy shit, this is the place I've been looking for.
Yeah.
And so that's a good place to build community online, and that's one resource that you have as a solitary pagan that we didn't necessarily have when we were trying to figure it out.
Right.
We bought the wrong books. We talked to the wrong people. We bought into the wrong lies. We left, and then we buy into another lie, and it was a whole big to-do, but that's the only way you could learn anything.
Yeah.
Practice and failure.
And I think, if you look at our Discord, like, people don't want dogma. They don't want rules. They don't want to go the same direction everybody else is going. But when they come into our Discord, like, there are rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are certain things that we expect. and they're very easy to do. But these are the things that, you know, we would love to see from you. Like, we would love to see your work. We would love to see your contributions to the community and your works. And
yeah. But, you know, we get the one-off once in a while that wants to come in and sensationalize everything and, you know, myth up their experiences. Everybody sees through it. Come in, be real, be true, be humble, and this place will be one of the best places you've ever had to ask questions and get answers from real people that are doing it all around the world. From Denmark to Norway.
I do see occasionally too, like I would probably say every couple of weeks, once or twice a month, somebody comes back and it's like, hey guys, I'm really sorry. I've been out of the loop for months and you know, life kind of hit me in the face, and everybody's like, we don't hold hostages here, man. Like, great to have you back. Sorry you went through shit. Yeah. We're so happy to see you.
If you want to share it.
Yeah. So
PM me. Yeah.
It's not like you should have been here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really neat community that we have. It's very unique, I think. And part of it is we give them the freedom to explore and talk about pretty much anything we want. But we keep things that are non-Nordic to a particular group, right?
We are a little non-Nordic about that.
We are pretty particular about keeping it to discussions about Nordic animism and related topics. You can talk about the comparisons between the Nordic path and other paths, but generally most of that other stuff, if you want to talk about Wicca or you want to talk about Hellenic views,
they were just talking about Buddhism like yesterday, all on the non-Nordic path.
Yeah, just take it to non-Nordic paths, and then that's a really good place to discuss the sort of like the, I don't know, cultural collabs or whatever, like the difference in the between the different paths. But we are a Nordic group, and you can define that however you want, because we have all descriptions of human beings inside there, with all descriptions of beliefs, all founded in the Nordic animism, right? I would think.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we even have some Lokians in there that they follow the rules and they do exactly what they're asked of, and they know that their path is not our path, but and this server is on this type of path, and they stay within those parameters. And if they want to go outside of them, they go to that channel that's dedicated to it, because there is a need for that channel.
There is. Yep.
Not as much, but it's still a need.
Yeah. So that's a really cool resource that you have. And if not our Discord, then someone else's. Like, be available and be ready for it. I would say do some work. So I just recently posted a video in ours that covered a whole bunch of, it wasn't one of our videos, it was somebody else's on YouTube that I found. I wish I could tell you about it, but I don't know the name of the person.
Do you want me to find it?
Possibly. Maybe we'll link to it below or something.
Okay, yeah, that's probably best.
So I found value in it because it talked about specifically Norse pagan symbols that had been co-opted by the neo-Nazis, and both the Hitler's people and the modern neo-Nazis that are trying to co-opt paganism as their way. So there's a lot of those symbolisms there. So I shared that video onto our group because I want my tribesmen on our group to be able to spot these dog whistles and these subtle symbology and these subtle language that their enemies are using within the internet and the system that's at play. So one of the best things you can do as a solitary practitioner to protect yourself from ending up in the wrong place is to simply know the language, the dog whistles, the symbology that they use, where it came from, why they use it, and what it means to them. You can't hide from it. You can't just sign a piece of paper like the Declaration of Deeds, and it's like, oh, if you didn't sign it, then you're the enemy. Yeah, but the enemy can sign it too. I think that it's the best thing that you can do to protect yourself is not sign an online petition, but to educate yourself on what the enemy does, right? And I even hesitate to call them enemy, even though they are the enemy. But some of the people are, their heart's not in it. They're there because they got pushed there. Yes. Right? Not everybody that's, I'm going to use the AFA. I don't generally do this. I try not to. But not everybody that's in the AFA is a separatist or a supremacist. They're not. They just don't know where else to go, and that happens to be the loudest group that they could find. They give them their money, they figure them out, and in most cases, they leave eventually.
I mean, they look great online.
They do. If you go through their stuff, if you actually educate yourself on what they're about, go look at their website. It looks very attractive to a new pagan, and I want you to know that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
a new pagan that doesn't have anybody to...
It doesn't have any information about what's right, what's wrong, who's good, who's
who to
bad.
Practice with, friends.
Is this a racially specific cultural practice? Is it a closed practice? They don't know any of this information. But the problem is when somebody comes out and they're like, well, I heard that this is just for people of Northern European descent, and my ancestry DNA said that I'm 54% Norwegian, right? And they come out like that and everybody just browbeats them. It's like, whoa, they don't know any better. This is the point where we have to educate people and not beat them over the head. And unfortunately and unfortunately at the same time, the amount of information available on the internet makes it very, very hard to get it right. There's just too much information, and a lot of it is either skewed to one side or the other, or it's just flat out wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
and even if you use the AI, if you ask the AI, ChatGPT or whatever, about some of this stuff, 90% of the time he gets it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You have to well, what I heard was, and what was, what's in the lore is this, and it's like, well, you can ask it a specific question. It'll be completely wrong about most of it. And then you have to kind of like poke and prod and make it dig deeper in order to get the right answers. So at first glance, even if you went to the AI and you asked it a question about Asatru, you're likely going to get a skewed answer based on whatever the culture or whatever the community is saying the most, right? Because that's what it has. And since the loudest mouthpiece we have is the AFA, a lot of what you're going to get is going to be Nine Noble Virtues and the related dogmatic Odin-based Catholicism that they're into, right? Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And Stephen McNallen said it himself, that it's modeled after the Catholic religion because it's very comfortable and easy for people to transition from the Christian faith to a dogmatic pagan faith. That was his idea, and that's the idea that they are doing. People don't know that.
And see, this is... yes, you have to educate yourself on these different dog whistles and things. But on the other side of that coin, too, you also have to, when you come across people, give them the benefit of the doubt that they're just ignorant. Mm-hmm. And
I know we don't get the benefit of the doubt, and some of our mistakes are due to ignorance as well.
I know 100%, and that's why I'm saying that other people, when it confronts them, that they need to look at it as, is this just ignorance? And sometimes, most of the time it is, because if you look at our kinsmen, like some of our kinsmen, had some dog whistles in their email, and if we would have taken them for, well, you're a racist and a separatist and all this, like we would have lost some really good kinsmen.
So what she's talking about, and I'm gonna just kind of expose it. I'm not gonna call out my kinsmen, but I will say that one of my kinsmen had an 88 in his email because he was born in 1988, and I gently went to him and I'm like, do you know what 88 means? It's part of 1488. The 14 is the 14 words to save the white race from David Blaine, and the 88 is Heil Hitler. So that's a dog whistle. And that's actually in that video that I shared too. They actually covered that particular part. Those are the kind of things that if you can recognize them, they can save you a lot of trouble in the end. Maybe not because, oh, look, this person's got 1488 in their name, I'm going to go to war with them. Maybe you can just not engage with them and just move to a different group that doesn't allow that kind of bullshit. Right? Yeah, or if you have a group and somebody comes in and their name is fucking, Rolling Deep 88, then you can, pull them off to the side and be like, hey, what's the 88 about? Oh, I was born in 1988. Okay, well, just so you know, I'm not going to let you in with that email because this is what it means to our community, right? Mm-hmm. I've done that. I've done that on our Discord. Like, you need to change your name. I don't give a fuck when you were born. You're not going to run around on our Discord and flag 88. That is true.
That's one of those rules. Yeah. Like, it's
you're not going to do it. You're not going to do the dog whistle, even in ignorance. So I won't hold it against you, and I won't boot you out. But that's got to go.
And you also don't go at them with aggression either. You go at them like they're just.
Well, usually I'll ask Garvor to do it because he's way more
tactful.
Yeah, but he's also foreign too. So if there's a little bit of a breakdown, they can blame it on cultural differences. You know what I mean? Like, it's way easier to have him do it. But
thank you, Godward.
Yes, thank you. We love you. But sometimes, because I remember I had one guy, and he had, I don't remember what the dog whistles were. It was like, I think it was like his avatar's picture was something very borderline. And I was like,
a flag.
And I was like, I don't know if you know what that means or not, but I suspect that you do. That has to go. Yeah. Right? Very simple. Like, if you're going to stay here, that's got to change. And he changed it to something else that was a little bit more cryptic and a little bit deeper in history, but just as equally bad. And I'm like, now I see what you're doing. You got one warning. Get it the fuck off of my thing, or you are banned for life. And he's like, okay. And he changed it to something else that was a little less obvious. And I was like, you're done. Ban out.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Because I've been around the community long enough to see that kind of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of know what some of those symbols were, but I'm not even going to go into them.
Yeah.
It's a little too deep for this conversation. But the point is, if you know them, then you can keep your house clean.
Yes.
If you don't know, they will try to slide in. I don't know why. Like, you're not welcome here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think like you. What are you going to get by coming into our house and listening to our conversations? Is it going to educate you so you have a better way to infiltrate us in the future? Why infiltrate us? Why not just go do your own practice and leave us the hell alone, right?
Yeah.
So
as a new pagan,
yeah,
learn some of the symbols.
Learn them, and the information's there. And if I find a cool video that's really educational like that, believe me, if I drop a post on my Discord and it's got a swastika in the picture, it's because there's some real deep education in that. Like, pay attention. You know what I mean? It ain't about nothing else. It's about education. It's about learning how to protect yourself in this very, very frustrating and sometimes aggressive online landscape,
and
right?
Dangerous, yeah.
It could be dangerous, yeah. We're going to wrap this up, but the one last thing I wanted to talk about was the winters. So we all have winters in our practice. So what we call as winters is those phases in your practice where your enthusiasm for the faith is, kind of fading. You get to the point where you're like, I don't know if this is the path for me. I'm feeling pretty fucking melancholy about the whole goddamn thing. I don't want to make an offering. I don't want to light a candle. I just want to live my fucking stupid life.
Yep.
God
ain't doing shit for me right now. I don't have any love for them right now. Like, fuck them guys. I'm just going to be on my own fucking way.
So we call those the winters. And so there's these moments, the summers and the winters. The summers are those times when you're like super excited and you got kinsmen and everything's going good and you got bloats and festivals and all these things are happening and everything's exciting and new and you're learning new stuff and you're getting new toys and ritual gear and everything. And then there's a time when it all gets stale and boring and redundant and repetitious and you're just like, ugh, let me be. And then you go through a while where you're not getting connected. We get a lot of people that contact us on that. And they're like, I'm really feeling like I'm losing my touch with this whole Asatru thing, and I kind of want to just wander.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm
like,
losing my connection to the gods.
I'm like, go wander. Yeah. Go wander. Go read the Bible. Go study other religions. Go learn these other things. Go.
I mean, that's actually a great tip. Go read the Bible. Go read the Bible.
Yeah. Go, if you really want to get back to it, but you're not feeling the enthusiasm for it, go find whatever pushed you here in the first place. Were you a Lutheran? Go pick up your old Bible and read through that. You'll find your way back to Odin. So, because that's what chased you out of there in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So go do that, or just go experiment and experience life. And don't worry about the gods. They'll take care of themselves. There's plenty of us making offerings, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've had plenty of moments, even up to years, with no rituals, no blessings, no nothing. Just living our life and trying to get through it, right? So you shouldn't feel bad. It's like, man, I've had a really hard couple of months, and I haven't made any offerings to Odin or any offerings to Thor or Freya. Like, I'm feeling really bad, like they're going to turn their back on. They're not. They're not. They created you. They know what life is. They have their moments too. Odin disappears. Freya still can't find Oder. So, like, that dude's still wandering in the woods somewhere. So, you know what I mean? Like, the gods do it too. They wander. Odin leaves sometimes. There's only a couple people who can sit in his stead on the throne. That happens because he's gone. He doesn't tell people he's coming back. He's not going to hold it against you for doing the same thing. Just go live your life have some experiences, and when the moment is right, you'll find your way back, or you will drift away to whatever faith is calling to you. Right?
Right. When you're talking about, don't worry about doing any offerings. There's plenty of us that are doing offerings. I just got in my head this, the gods, going to this little area where there's all these food trucks, and it's like, oh, I can get a little offering here, and I can get a little offering here, and it's like, oh, our favorite food truck is back, it's the pizza truck.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if you look at it that way, it's like they have all these other trucks to choose from, but, oh, maybe there's this one that they've been craving, and here it is again, and it's like, oh, fuck yeah.
Yay, T-Road.
So in my head, I was just picturing food trucks, which just amused me.
That's great.
It's a long night.
Yeah, it is a long night. We're going to wrap this sucker up because we've been yapping for a while. But guess what we're going to do? We're going to shoot another one, and we're going to finish this list. Yeah, -2 in the pop, baby. He'll be here next week. It's hard to edit these things when we do it like this, right?
It is hard.
All right. We're going to wrap it up, though.
This is your problem.
It is my problem, because now that she edits all the really cool videos, I edit these things.
Well, you're very good at it.
Fun. All right, we're out. We're going to kick it off, and we're going to do another one. You might notice that we don't change our clothes. It's not a week later. Just feels like it.
Yep. Torvigi.
Love you, Torvigi.